So if he wasn't my son, you would still have treated him like a criminal? Tell me, Captain, is that how you judge future aviators? By the color of their skin? By their clothes? This is the story of a young boy who was humiliated by a pilot, only for the tables to turn in the most unexpected and satisfying way. If you find this story interesting, kindly support us by hitting the like button and subscribing. The sun glared over the runway of Rosefield International Airport. Families bustled, rolling suitcases, hugging loved ones goodbye. Among them was a young black boy named Marcus, just 14 years old, standing near the observation deck with his phone out. Marcus loved planes. While other kids were obsessed with video games, Marcus spent hours sketching aircraft, memorizing flight numbers, and dreaming of becoming a pilot one day. That afternoon, he pressed his phone against the glass, recording the giant jet engines roaring as they prepared for takeoff. His eyes sparkled with excitement, but not everyone saw an innocent boy chasing his dreams. Captain Reynolds, a senior pilot with decades of experience, spotted Marcus through the terminal window. Reynolds was known among staff, not just for his flying skills, but for his arrogance. He saw Marcus pointing his phone toward the planes and frowned. "What's this kid doing? Recording the aircraft? Suspicious." His suspicion wasn't grounded in reality. It was rooted in prejudice. Reynolds marched over, his pilot uniform crisp, his voice sharp. "Hey, you! What do you think you're doing?" Marcus froze. I was just recording, sir. I love airplanes." But Reynolds didn't buy it. He snatched the phone from Marcus's hand. "You can't film here. This is restricted. Are you trying to tamper with airport security?" Marcus's heart sank. "No, sir. I swear I just want to be a pilot one day. I wasn't doing anything wrong." Passengers turned to stare. Whispers spread. A boy being accused by a respected pilot. It didn't look good. Reynolds narrowed his eyes, his voice dripping with disdain. "Don't lie to me. I've seen kids like you before. Always up to no good." The words cut deeper than the accusation. Before Marcus could explain further, Reynolds waved to airport security. "Call the police. This boy is suspicious." Marcus's chest tightened. His knees shook. "Please. I didn't do anything." Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. They questioned Marcus harshly, treating him like a criminal in front of dozens of passengers. His face burned with shame, his dreams, his love for planes, reduced to suspicion because of how he looked. The officers demanded his information, scribbled notes, and finally let him go with a warning. Reynolds smirked, convinced he had protected the airport. But Marcus walked away with tears in his eyes. Passengers whispered, shaking their heads, some pitying the boy, others believing the pilot's version. Reynolds brushed off his uniform proudly. To him, it was just another day. To Marcus, it was the worst humiliation of his life. Or so it seemed. Hours later, Reynolds received an urgent call from airport administration. "Captain Reynolds, you're required in the conference lounge." Now. He straightened his tie, annoyed but unbothered. Meetings were nothing new. When he entered the lounge, however, his confidence faltered. At the head of the table sat a tall man in a sharp navy suit, his badge glinting under the lights. Beside him was Marcus. Reynolds' stomach dropped. The man's presence commanded silence. Every executive in the room treated him with utmost respect. He was none other than David Carter, administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, the highest authority in civil aviation, and Marcus's father. David Carter's voice was calm but carried weight that silenced the room. "Captain Reynolds, my son tells me you accused him of being a threat, that you called the police on him for recording planes. Is this true?" Reynolds swallowed hard. Sweat prickled his forehead. "Sir, I was only following protocol. The boy looked suspicious." The room went icy. "Suspicious?" Carter repeated slowly. "For loving airplanes? For recording from a public observation deck?" Reynolds stammered. I didn't know he was your son." Carter's eyes narrowed. So if he wasn't my son, you would still have treated him like a criminal? Tell me, Captain, is that how you judge future aviators? By the color of their skin? By their clothes? Gasps rippled through the room. Reynolds's mouth opened, but no words came out. His pride, the shield he always hid behind, was cracking. Carter leaned forward, his voice low but thunderous. You embarrassed my son in public. You insulted his dreams. You called the police on a child who one day may fly higher than you ever could. Tell me, Captain Reynolds, do you still believe you're fit to wear those wings? The silence was suffocating. Reynolds's face drained of color. He had spent years commanding respect, but now, his career, his reputation, all of it balanced on the edge of this man's decision. Marcus sat quietly, his eyes still red from earlier tears. But this time, there was no fear, only quiet strength. For the first time in his life, Reynolds realized the boy he humiliated wasn't powerless. He was the son of the most powerful man in aviation. David Carter stood, his voice final. Tomorrow morning, Captain Reynolds, the FAA will decide whether you continue flying or whether yesterday was your last flight. Reynolds's knees trembled. His career, decades of flying, hung by a thread. And for the first time, he wished he had treated a young boy with simple respect, because the tables had turned, and the real judgment was only beginning. The morning sun rose over Rosefield International Airport, but for Captain Reynolds, it was the darkest morning of his life. His hands trembled as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. For decades, he had worn his pilot's uniform with pride. Today, it felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He wasn't heading to a flight. He was heading to judgment. The FAA's disciplinary boardroom was cold and silent, its walls lined with portraits of aviation pioneers. At the head of the long mahogany table sat David Carter, administrator of the FAA. His presence alone made even the highest-ranking executives sit straighter, and just a few seats away sat Marcus, the boy Reynolds had humiliated. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried a quiet strength that cut deeper than any accusation. The boardroom filled with officials, attorneys, and witnesses. Finally, Carter spoke. His voice was steady, commanding. Captain Reynolds, yesterday you called the police on a 14-year-old boy for recording airplanes from a public observation deck. You accused him of being suspicious, of being a threat. Do you deny this? Reynolds cleared his throat. His voice wavered, but he forced confidence. Sir, I was only protecting airport security. In these times, we can't be too careful. The board members exchanged glances. Carter's face remained unreadable. Protecting security, Carter repeated slowly. By humiliating a child? Reynolds stiffened. I didn't know he was your son. The room went deathly still. Carter leaned forward. His tone dropped like a hammer. So, if he wasn't my son, your actions would have been justified? Reynolds opened his mouth, but no words came. Just when Reynolds thought he might regain control, another voice broke the silence. Sir, a woman said softly, standing from the back of the room. It was Linda, a flight attendant who had worked under Reynolds for years. Her hands shook, but her voice carried conviction. I've seen this before. Captain Reynolds has a pattern. He looks down on passengers he thinks don't belong. He mocks accents, ignores economy travelers, dismisses trainees. Yesterday wasn't an accident. It was who he is. Gasps rippled through the room. Reynolds's heart sank, his carefully built image of professionalism crumbling in seconds. Carter turned his gaze back to him. Is this true, Captain? Are these the values you represent in our skies? Reynolds stammered. No, she's exaggerating. But the silence of the room said otherwise. Every eye turned to Carter. He had the power to end Reynolds's career with a single word. Reynolds braced himself, waiting for the inevitable. Dismissal, disgrace, the end of his wings. But Carter did something no one expected. He leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Captain Reynolds," he said slowly, "firing you would be the easy path. But sometimes punishment is not about ending a career, it's about reshaping a man." The room shifted. Everyone leaned closer. Carter continued. "You accused a boy of not belonging in aviation. You mocked his dreams. From this day forward, you will mentor new cadets at the FAA Youth Aviation Program. And you will personally train Marcus, the boy you once humiliated, until he is ready to fly." Reynolds' jaw dropped. "What? You can't be serious." Carter's eyes narrowed. "You wanted to call the police on him for loving airplanes. Now you will answer to him every single day until you prove you've changed. That is my ruling." The decision sent shockwaves across the room. Some nodded in approval. Others whispered in disbelief. Reynolds' face turned pale. To lose his wings would have been shameful. But this? To be forced to serve as a mentor to the boy he disrespected? To spend every day under the shadow of his own arrogance? It was worse than losing everything. Marcus glanced at his father, then at Reynolds. Calmly, he said, "Captain, do you still think kids like me don't belong in the skies?" The question pierced like a dagger. Reynolds looked away, his voice caught in his throat. For the first time in his career, he had no answer. Carter stood, his final words sealing the moment. "Captain Reynolds, the sky has no room for arrogance. You will serve, you will teach, and you will learn. Fail this program, and yesterday will have been your last flight." The board adjourned. Officials filed out. Marcus remained seated, his young eyes steady, his spirit unbroken. Reynolds sat frozen, the weight of his new reality crashing down. For years he had controlled cockpits, commanded crews, and looked down on those he thought were beneath him. Now, his future rested in the hands of the boy he had once tried to crush. And deep down, he feared a truth he could not ignore. Maybe the real lesson wasn't for Marcus at all. Maybe it was for him.